So I was trying to bring those two worlds together because the efficiencies that the blockchain will bring to brand relationships with consumers is underestimated by a long shot. People do not get it yet, how transformational this stuff is going to be. So we started developing a consumer engagement platform called Stadius in about early 21. And, we sort of had been working on that for a little while. And really what it set out to do was kind of, transform the way that brands interacted with fans by being able to give them direct sort of benefit and rewards, into their wallet in the shape of tokens, NFTs.
Yeah.
And this was where sort of like Top Shots was starting to really like crank, and you had the sport kind of thing happening, and Tom Brady launched a collection, and then I don't know, like, so the sport thing and it kind of collided in this space. And around the same time, a mate of mine, and I was following Bill Ty, I think, because of my entrepreneurial journey with the magazines. I was always
his VC background and everything. Yeah.
Right. So I was sort of following Bill Ty, and then a mate of mine just sent me a link to Danny's tweet about On-Chain Monkey, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, this looks good. And I looked into who the team was and saw Bill Ty's name there, and I was like, all right, I'll,
it's cheap.
Free.
Yeah, free mint. Yeah.
So I'll grab a couple of those, and that's where that all started. And me being me, I've always got 400 million things going on at the same time. I don't know how to not do. I don't know how to not do it, right? And so I think I like jumped in the Discord and I got super excited, and then I started designing logos, and I was like, well, like, what? There's no website. Like, oh, there's this website, but like, hang on, this Bill Ty guy's like legit businesses. He's funded Canva. He's like funded Zoom. Like, what? But this, like, so things weren't like kind of lining up in my head. I was like, do you guys need help? And I reached out to, I think like Coco was in the Discord at the time, and Danny, and I was like, do you guys need some help? And I was like sort of trying to find some work for me and my brother, and because my brother's a web developer. And so together we kind of like spin up websites. And so we're like, all right, like, like we can help. And so we got a little contract to build the first OCM website, which was dope. So we did that. And then I worked with Coco on the logo. So we did that. And I was just like excited to be kind of like in
building,
the OCM
helping,
space,
helping.
And so that's sort of like the start of the OCM journey. And then like concurrently, I had like all of these other things like happening where I was still creative director of this agency, and we were still trying to do Stadius, which is a platform for the NFT loyalty and rewards. And yeah, so that's kind of like brings us up to really about 2022, like at the end of like sort of last year. And Stadius is kind of, we hit a bit of a, obviously, with the market crashing, FTX and everything happening in late last year, it was just a bad time to be trying to do anything in the space from that level, and companies didn't want to touch crypto,
Yeah. Be still in the technology, there'll be another day probably.
There will. So Stadius, unfortunately, has just sort of had to take a bit of a back seat. But I'd sort of got transitioned into full-time Stadius sort of mid 2022, because I know that this is like where the space is going.
I mean, it sounds sorry to jump in. It sounds a lot like the Starbucks program, where, if you're using your app a lot and things like that, like you get rewards or you get a cool little NFT. Or even I was in the other side, Second Trip, and you could get in from just having a referral code. And so like people that don't even own an NFT might have gotten their first Yuga asset airdrop to them because they just went and played and like pop bubbles in a random beta alpha test. Like, so yeah, I mean, you're working in the similar area of very strong companies, but the traction might not be there yet.
And like, it was really funny to see like the Starbucks thing happen, because I was like, finally, like, so, and because we're in Australia, right? Australia being such a small market, we don't have the capacity to just spin up throw $5
There's no
million
Silicon Valley.
There's no
just
Silicon
VCs
Valley.
Unless the guys at SoftBank or something, yeah.
Yeah. So like, it was almost impossible for us to like raise money. We raised a bit from friends and family, and we got like, enough to get a product into market, and we've done a couple of trials, and we worked with a couple of the big brands, and like that for what we did, it was pretty successful. And I'm really proud of what we've built and what we have built to this day. I guess like and then to see what Starbucks did with their program, and then to see Nike launch the dot swoosh. And I'm like, this is the validation that we need. Like, this is what we told you guys 2 years ago that was going to happen. But unfortunately, Australia is still, like, in terms of the adoption, like, still super far behind. Like, you know, everything that's happening in the space in the US at the moment will happen here. It's just going to take 3 or 4 years. So I was like, I kind of got getting frustrated, and, you know, like, me and Rick were like, we're still trying to, like, figure out a way forward for it. But then a lot of my interactions with people over the last couple of years being in OCM, like, I just built this amazing kind of network of people. And the more that I, like, talk to guys like, you know, Mike and Andy and Conquistador, and just looking down the kind of list, like Sophia, like these people that have been around for a while, there's just something in me that was just like, I can't, like, from Australia, like, it's like, I'm going to be banging my head against a wall here to build a product.
Yeah.
And so FlexTag was just a response to, like, can I build a product in the US for the US market and build something that's not, like, crazy tech driven? It's not like, it's just a picture on a card, right?
And never step foot in the US.
And do it from here, my little studio at the back of my house, with my 3 kids in there going crazy, and my wife being the most amazing person in the world, right? Like,
Cheers.
can I do that from this little box on the Gold Coast in Australia? And it was like, I had a point to prove to myself, because, like, so many of the things that I'd started, whether it was like buying Riptide or, you know, all my little entrepreneurial things that I've done, like I've started, like, done t-shirt companies, I started a drumstick company, I started, like, anything, like, so many ideas that I've had, and, like, every time I seem to sort of come up against, like, sort of similar things. I was like, right, this is it. So I just set myself a goal. I'm like, what's the simplest product you can think of that's going to add value immediately to someone's day in the Web3 space, that literally has no tech? Because text, it's too expensive. It takes too long to develop. So that was FlexTag. I was like, there's nothing I couldn't find anything that did what FlexTag did. And so I was like, I said to Mike, I said to Good Things, like, look, I've got this idea. And this was like December last year, I think, ish.
Okay.
I said to Mike, I showed him, like, a mock-up, and he's like, that's kind of cool. And then I got, like, I found, like, in the little network, the OCM network, you know, Twitter Space is incredible. DAF was doing them for, I think it was like an event last year. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think maybe like
no
Basil.
worries. Yeah, probably like an IRL event or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so DAF, he was from, like, the Rask community, the Rotten Antisocial Club. So he was in that, and he had some, you know, in his world, he did some print products. And so I connected with him and said, look, I've got this idea for, like, something similar to what I've seen you guys doing with your badges, but, like, I want to design it in a pretty unique way. Can you help me? And he's like, yeah, of course, man. Like, so the kind of the Web3-ness of the whole product has been, like, from the beginning. And then, like, to go back to Zombie Boy, you know, Zombie Boy, I built the posterizer with in Vercel. We've built, like, a few other things.
Yeah. Very useful on Twitter.
Yeah. Like, exactly. Like that thing alone, like, I don't know how many times I've seen that used now, like the 3 monkeys and the donuts.
Yeah. And the poster, like the Genesis half face and the Karma half face. Yeah, I got them all.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, he's a like, guy that I love to work with. And so I said to him, like, look, here's my idea. I need someone to be able to connect their Twitter account. Basically, it self-populate the badge, and I take that, and then they buy it, and then I send it to them, and we can turn it around in, like, a couple of weeks. I was like, yeah, sure. So we spent, like, you know, sort of a month building the first kind of, like, test. And I did, during this time, I was, like, just sending out mock-ups, right? I hadn't even created a physical badge at this point. Like, they were all just mock-ups. But people were liking it, and I was like, oh yeah, like, this is cool. I kept tweaking the design based on some feedback, and eventually found like a really sweet spot where people were like, yes, where can I buy this? Where can I buy this? And I was like, right, now's the right time. So Zombie Boy and I put the website up, and with a bit of the help of the money, the DAO money, some small grants committee essentially, and, you know, and then away we went, and we got a couple of orders through, and, you know, this was sort of January, February. I think we launched it in February.
Yeah.
So it's been 3 months or so. And
how many orders so far?
So I've done 100 let's have a look. I'll give you the exact number.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up my little.
Yeah, you got them split up in like cash and bananas, or they're all together?
They're all together, man.
I
It's old
figured.
school.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got a
yeah.
folder and I've got like
Yep, an
a
Excel
number.
spreadsheet, and yeah.
I've got it's it. It's super like so. My mistake that I always had with entrepreneurial. We can get into this later, but
That's all good.
it's actually a pretty good point that I'll come back to. But hang on, flex tag. Here we go. Flex tag, print tags, print files. I'm up to badge number. So badge number 133.
Okay, which one am I? Am I the last one?
I think.
Yeah, okay.
There's one. So there's one more.
Okay. So
there's one
133,
after you.
that's fine. 134. Isn't that like I love you?
The
Yeah,
134.
that's cool. All right.
Will be next. But then I've got probably another, like I've done sort of some customs and a few other bits and pieces for people. So I'm probably up to 1, 2, 3, 4 done. So 104, 150, 152.
Okay.
So 150 in 3 months.
And it's super scalable.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, averaging 50 a month out of the gate, and more than one a day. You're probably having decent amount of hits, people testing out, looking. I mean, I know some people that want to do multiple because they want to have one for their like on-chain monkey community. They want to have one for like their V friends, or one for their apes, or whatever it may be. So like once people have it, they get the reaction, and then they're coming back for more. I definitely sing the praises of Flex Tag. I just love the API hook. And like you said, you don't have to put your feet on the ground in the States, but you can sell a product like that, or you can do it in Asia, or you can do it in Europe, and it's just interchangeable. Or you sell the service of using your technology for a different application, whether it be, maybe I've had an idea about wearables or other things. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about things. But that's so cool. And I definitely recommend checking out flextag.io. And just, yeah, if you want to give us any more like texture on like how you can get there, how you can order, and or anything that you just want to say about the company more.
Yeah, I mean, like, so probably the two things that I think I do want to share about FlexTag, like I said earlier that it was like I just wanted to have a simple product that met a need, but it's funny because like it goes back to something that's very personal to me, which is like I don't deal well in crowd situations. Right? I'm sort of a bit of an introvert, and so
as a fellow lurker, I can understand. And then, yeah, I've definitely been coming out of my shell more, recently. So
yeah,
go on, please.
And so when it came to, there was an NFT conference in Melbourne that Rick and like my Stadia's co-founder and I went to, and I just wished that I had something that wouldn't be an icebreaker better than what I had. And so when I was like walking around NFT Melbourne, the couple of people that I did meet, it would be like you would kind of go through this kind of awkwardness about, oh hey, like I'm so and so, like blah blah blah, what do you do, like, oh what's your Twitter profile?
Yeah.
And there was a couple of times where I'd be like, oh, I follow you on Twitter. Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah,
or
so
you're that girl.
let me jump in and give you a little Miami context, because so I met Slime in Spaces in the morning because we're both kind of early birds, and he's a Bitcoin frogs holder, and then I actually got to meet him in person. But yeah, so I mean, we all introduce ourselves already like that because that's how we know each other online in our Web3 personas. And then it's like, yes, but this is my name, and now you can introduce ourselves like that. And we talk about, like, I talked about my family basically the whole weekend because that's what I do. And yeah, it's definitely like, that's why I had to order one as soon as I was ready to go to one, and I've been meaning to, and just like looked at it 10 times. And then another cool thing is, like, I had my friend Slime now, he made my background like the digital like Bitcoin frog background. Sick. Yeah, so like he gave that to us just like in a chat one day because he was tinkering around. So it just like kind of reminded me of your early days of OCM, similar ties, and I just had to have like both of them on there because I was excited to be a part of that event. And I even made a little like sticker on a card protector for like a poker player, but it basically is just a 3D printed chip with a design on it. And I numbered them. So I had 9 of them that were there, and I gave them to like Danny and Polly and Good Things and everybody, and then a few frogs. And then I had the extra stickers, and I was surprised at how many people were like putting them on those nubs of their phone or just like on the back of their phone. And I just like saw them the next day. And it's like those little things that you can like, those trinkets are important. And that's definitely where flex tag like is filling this gap.
Yeah, and like it's really incredible to hear how, like, because the space has its own meta, as you said, right? Like we kind of LARP behind these PFPs, but that provides just such an interesting kind of space to experiment with all that kind of stuff you were just talking about, and creating, you know, culture that goes beyond like what we're used to in the space, and the collectability of things. Like being 90s kids, you just were collectors. Like it's, you know, it's the whole thing, right? So back to the basketball cards, you just collect stuff. Like it's
Yeah, or
cool.
baseball cards or Pokemon or
Yeah,
Pogs or
whatever.
whatever your thing was, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joes. Like it just depends on when
Yeah,
you're Teletubbies, Beanie Babies. Like there's just so many catalogs you can go through.
yeah. And so that's kind of ingrained in us, right? So we love that. We're like, whether we kind of acknowledge that or not, like as a, you know, as a cohort or as a generation, it's kind of doesn't matter. It's just like it is what it is. So
Yeah,
I
I'd push
think
back
like
a
a
little bit on that. I think just like archaeology, it's just a different time frame. So we're
right.
interested in popular culture more and like go pace of what's new and things become vintage, or even think of cars, a vintage or classic car generally took like 30, 50 years, whatever category it's in. And now something is vintage, like because it went out of print a year ago or something, or there's the first run of Pokemon cards and now there's run 2, 3, 4, 5, or so people are popping old boxes and that has the value or whatever it may be. A Roman coin is always going to have that value, whether it was, the day of or then down the line. And that's one reason why I've just really gotten into like ordinal theory and everything going on right now. So I just find that
Mhm.
really interesting relationship. But I definitely agree that it's changed, from historical standards, probably because of modern culture. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying.
And it's also because it's a, you know, it's a personal thing, right? And it's tied to that nostalgia effect. You
Yeah,
kind
that's a good
of,
word, nostalgia. Yeah.
so that's, I mean, that's, it's an incredibly powerful driver for any kind of behavior, you know, marketing or otherwise, right?
I
Just
mean,
the,
look at World of Warcraft. They just relaunched it with a better skin, and it's still being played constantly all day.
yep. I mean, you can't like a leopard. It's tough to get a leopard to change its spots, right? And
I
so,
will play Mario all day long. I mean, yeah,
so, I mean, it's cool, but there's also a huge kind of like opportunity for, you know, I think moving forward, like it's not just about launching like anything that was old and making it new again. Like that's not what people kind of want. They want the emotional attachment to an experience, right? And so this is, I think, what's key and what's happening right now in the space, particularly like within OCM, is that like, and VFriend, the VFriends conference that just happened is a really good example of this, where when you can attach experience to a product, and this is, you know, why brands spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands, millions on
millions,
sponsorship and
millions.
activation, right? It's because they understand that as soon as you attach an emotional experience to a product and it's a positive one, you've got someone for life. Like they love it, therefore
Yeah,
they love your
the
brand and
Magic
love your product.
Kingdom. They had an experience, and they're going to watch Disney or and pass it on generation after generation, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And so what we're seeing now is the communities that are making it through are the ones that are providing experience and product together. And that's what OCM is doing in spades. I mean, just look at the NFT NYC New York Stock Exchange experience. Like
Insane.
you,
Yeah.
like no one who went to that is going to sell their monkey ever.
Yeah, I
Like,
was super bummed I missed it. I was planning on going to that actually, and then had a little family thing come up, and I just couldn't justify going that weekend. So yeah, I'm definitely bummed I missed out, but I'm excited that everybody got there and I saw the videos, and it was, yeah, just I kind of have like that finance background I mentioned a little bit, I think, before we started recording. But so yeah, I definitely, like I'm gonna miss that one, but I think there'll be another opportunity someday, one way or another. Maybe it'll be the NASDAQ one, but we'll see.
well, I mean, like, and this is the best part, and it's crazy, right? And I was talking about this, you know, I think with Brian and Andy, and I've talked about it with Good Things before, but Web3 has this funny way of accelerating everything that you want out of life into like a, you know, a really crazy timeline. Like
Warp speed, yeah, yeah.
warp speed. Like I can remember like watching videos of Bill Ty talking to like, you know, Raoul Pale's interview. I've, you know, other like conference stuff, and like Bill Tai at that time seemed a million miles and $1 billion away from me. Like, I'm never gonna, like, how am I gonna ever get an introduction to Bill Tai, right? Like, it just, that stuff doesn't happen. Like, you know, I mean, it does, but it's
maybe if you bump into him at a
kind
coffee shop in New York or something or whatever.
right?
Yeah.
You kind of, yeah. So, but then like being able to go buy a monkey, jump on a space, and he's in the same space. And this is like day 4 or day 5 of like OCM. And he's in there with Raoul on the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a second, like I could jump on as a speaker and just speak directly to him now. Like that moment that I realized, like I went from being a million miles away to literally being in the same space in the same time, like blew my mind.
You get technology like that, everything just like clicked in together, you know, the lock was opened.
Oh man. And then I was like, this is it. This is the great unlock. Like you find your people, and there's only a very, very small like moments in time where this is possible, right? When these like they're called like the technology curves, like the adoption curves.
Yeah,
like
early adopters, and then start ramping up. Growth stage, maturity, etc.
Yeah. So these S curves of adoption, we're at one where there's 2 points and they're overlapping like right now, and they're only going to overlap for as long as like a couple of maybe a year, maybe 2 years, right? And we have like, because what'll happen is the Web3 space will expand, like it'll get bigger.
Yeah.
And the ability to be able to like connect into a network that's this small, that this powerful at this point in time will be lost. Like you won't be able to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can even see it. I mean, it's not a downside or anything, but just Danny and Amanda and everybody is busy building and doing amazing things. And there's other people in the community. And, I'd like to put myself as one that tries to go up on spaces and is building OCM Magazine and, has lots of other ideas. And, recently, like, is willing to give time to help with props or writing or creative things or just being an end user to test something out, And I think that's just a great idea is, if you're part of the community and you want to like learn, just throw yourself out there, like get in a space and come chat, or, get on the Discord and ask questions and be intuitive, or drop an article in there. And, any which way that you can like interact, you don't know what will happen next. So like you might have that Zelda key unlock or whatever, and just become the next flex tag. So I'm taking up way too much of your time. This is such an interesting story. I feel like we could just keep going forever. And this happens like in spaces whenever we're talking with HeavyD. So this is like, a great time. And I just want to wrap up if you wanted to say anything more, but I definitely highly recommend check out flextag.io. Is that correct?
Flextag.io. Yep.
Yes. And you just, you log into your Twitter through like an API like you would in Discord and several other apps. You have your banner, boom, PFP. You can make a few choices, a few tweaks. If you don't like it, then go change your, PFP and banner, and boom, you've got some sweet swag. Can't get it, spit that out. But yeah, then the next conference and things like that. And I actually ran and grabbed a notebook while I was on mute because I have an idea for you in a minute. So we'll talk. But nice. Is there any like final notes that you want to give to the OCM fam, just a greater community, or just, say parting words?
Parting words. Like, I think if you're listening to this and you're new, don't be afraid to just get involved. The more you put into this space, the more you'll get out of it.
For sure.
And like, if it's possible for me to do from this side of the world in this little box over here, like it's possible for you. And like, it's nothing special about me. I turned 40 this year, right? Like,
congrats, you don't look it. So,
oh, thanks, man. But like for me, it's like I feel like I'm just getting the grip of it now. Like at 40,
Fair, yeah. I mean, the Deftones white pony shirt always helps for sure.
That gives it away. But I think like, there's never a bad time to start. You're never too early. Like you're never too late. If you're here listening now, you bang on, get involved. We're all super friendly. Like I honestly like, I've got other NFT projects, of course. Like you can't help but mint stuff when you're in this space and get, jump into other things and see what happens. But all roads just continually lead back to OCM for me. And like, yeah, it's going to get wild and it's crazy at sometimes, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I think, you know, if you're 20, then holy moly, like you're in such a good spot. Like, thank you, lucky
Yeah,
stars, that you're doing this at 20.
right. Imagine somebody in college being able to, like, talk code with Danny, or talk business strategy with like somebody like you very easily, or even like get Amanda's ear or good things, and anybody like that that's helping build and has like a track record. Build ties obviously not as available as some, but one of these days you might be able to, or you might pop in a space. I mean, Danny does it very regularly for OCM After Dark. So I think that's a great message. And as somebody that, I told you my like origin story, and I've said it before in other interviews, but I had a shared wallet with a good friend, Rabbi Gaines, and he had to drag me into this space, and I'm very glad that he did. And my first PFP, which is the genesis of the PFP you see on the screen, and everything like that. So, I'm glad it brought me here. I have my other projects, but I was definitely a lurker. I played the poker tourneys, I'd check out announcements, but I was like that in all communities. I was starting a family and just wasn't a focus, but I was interested in the space and just mining my rigs and focusing on that mostly. Excuse me. So I've become more active in the last 3 or 4 months with OCM Magazine and Spaces, and just in general crypto a lot more, because it's exciting things that are going on. And honestly, that's a lot to do with Danny going back to Bitcoin. I mean, that's where he started. That's his roots. It's the OG chain. Like, who else would you want to guide you into what could be? And I mean, some alpha. Danny's very involved in ordinal theory. I mean, if you don't know that, then I understand you're a ways away, but he is very involved in, and maybe not every single aspect, but like the technology and the standards that are being set. He definitely has a voice in the opinion because of his roots and his tenure, and just how good of a coder and builder he has proven himself to be in various ways.
Yeah, I think I wrote a thread on this a long time ago, and I can't remember. I think it was.
Look it up and
I'll have to
we'll
give it.
link it or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's a Twitter thread out there, and I go through the team, why I just love the founding team, and why I'm so bullish on Chain Monkey. This goes probably about 6 months ago. And I remember someone quoted, and I think it was either Good Things or someone like that. And I remember hearing on a space, they said, Danny, one meeting with Danny, and a lot of people in the Web3 space are, all noise, no signal. And one meeting with Danny realized that he's all signal, no noise.
Yeah.
The guy is, he's
Yes.
laser. He is
Yeah.
like, if there's definition of someone with like laser mind,
Focus
that's that guy.
and everything. And that's one thing I've really been intrigued with. And I feel like On-Chain Monkey did that with, being the first SVG code file all on chain, doing it in one transaction, free mint. And he just kind of put it out into the world, and let's see what happens. And now you have that almost similar relationship on Bitcoin with ordinals, because everything's on chain. Like, the smart contract has its upside, but it also has its downside. And I think we're seeing like the permanence aspect of collectibles, IP rights. A really interesting use case that I really like is, just think of like notaries. I'm sure you have to notarize documents over there. You go to some person that gets some certificate from somewhere, and they put a stamp on the piece of paper and say you signed it. Wouldn't it make much more sense to sign a transaction on an impermeable blockchain? That would sound like a much better legal standard. And just like simple use, Saylor talked about his will, simple use cases that just make law permanence and the standard permanence, rather than, oh, this server can go away, oh, those documents were filed in the wrong place, oh, yada yada yada. I mean, there's just so many different little nuggets, and we'll just see where the markets lead us. And that's an interesting time.
I mean, I'm probably going to show a little bit of my colors here, but
yeah,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right?
Okay. Oh, we're getting good.
But
the 1 hour mark, we're getting good.
But like, you think about, building 7 and that World Trade Center, and $2.5 trillion going missing from the budget, the defense budget.
Mm.
And all of the, like, the entire building that housed all of the documents just going up in smoke and literally being evaporated.
Mm.
Like,
there's plenty of unexplained things throughout this world, and I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
but do you know what I mean?
The UFO, like things like they've recently started to come out. They're saying, yes, we have this footage, we can't explain it, we can't even physically understand the math of how it moves. and we've had that even with like hummingbird wings and like the bee and, just like simple things of nature.
Yeah.
So I think it just shows that like there's all these aspects where technology and intuition and different levels. And, hey, maybe if you didn't see that tweet or jump in that space, like you wouldn't be here now, like building something interesting and doing something from, all the way across the big pond and making an impact in the States and with the team and things like that. And, I just want to say thank you. And I love being able to spotlight people and get a little texture and let people know more about you while also promoting your great products. And just thank you for your time. And it's been a pleasure. And we'll definitely do this again anytime you want. And I'll see you in the spaces.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank everybody for checking us out. And that was HeavyD. And please go to flextag.io and order right away.